What does it mean to be saved or to receive salvation according to the scriptures? When you talk about salvation in the Bible, it's tied into two things: a righteous rulership and immortality. Majority of people on the earth, when they think about being saved, they think, oh, when you die, you go to heaven. They don't understand that the kingdom of heaven is going to be on earth. And they also don't understand how life and death works according to the scriptures. So today we're going to explain those things. But first and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Bahapadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I want to say shalom to all the brothers and, of course, the few sisters pursuing this truth in sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your house. Now, the first precept we're going to go to is Micah, the 4th chapter, because here it sets up the foundation and infrastructure for the kingdom of heaven and how it's going to be run. So Micah 4:1, it reads, "But in the last days it shall come to pass," the last days, going into the final age, right? The age of the kingdom of heaven. Okay? In 2 Ezra 6:9, it uses the word world, or it says, "For Esau is the end of the world." Right there is telling you who will be ruling the last age before the kingdom of heaven is set up. But I bring that up, just a lesson within a lesson, and show you that there's 3 words for the word world in the scriptures. You have oikomene, which is the whole inhabited world. You have the word cosmos, which is a specific arrangement or ornament of people. Like you have the sports world or the music world, or most importantly, the world of Israel, the family. Okay? A world without end. So here it says, "But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord," the mountain here represents a government. Okay? Government, mind, govern, control. So the minds of the people are going to be controlled by a righteous government, the government established by the Lord. Right now, the minds of the people are controlled by a corrupt government. People's moral compass is skewed when you match it up to the Lord's standard. Okay? "Of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountain." So what you're reading about here is a new world order and one world government being set up. Now, that might ring a bell to some of you. On the left-hand side, the elites of this world are trying to set up a new world order and a one world government, but they're only mimicking what the Lord has for the future in righteousness. They're trying to duplicate it in wickedness. "And it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob." Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So this government is going to consist of who? The family of Israel. Primarily Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, King David, the 12, and the 144,000. Okay? Which are part of the 144,000. The 12 I'm speaking of. "And to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." Jerusalem is going to be the capital of the world, and the law is going to flow from it. This happens when the Lord sets up the kingdom of heaven and puts his people back in his own land. So talking about the family of the heavens, the nation of Israel, when we go back to the Holy Land, this is what's going to be going on in the earth. That's strike one to the tiny tops over there in the land today, who fit the description of Ezekiel 36:5, the wicked who appointed the Lord's land into their own possession. Let's continue on here. Micah 4:3, "And he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off." So right here is showing you that there's a separation. You have Jacob, that governing body, that family that's going to rule, and we're going to go into why they're going to be equipped to rule here shortly. We're going to go to Jeremiah, because these people are going to get a software update in a sense. All right, the laws are going to be written within their inward parts. Micah 4:3 again from the top. "And he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off." All right, just to go to show you that that family of the heavens is going to be ruling over other nations, meaning they're not going to partake in the immortality, and we're going to get into that as well. They're not going to partake in the dominion that this family is going to be given. They're going to be servants in the kingdom of heaven, which is going to be a blessing to them because they're going to be ruled by a righteous government. The quality of life is going to be elevated to a level that seems surreal to the average person in this world. Okay? It says, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. So they're taking, you know, their tools from weaponry or military tools and turning them back into agricultural tools. So nations are going to be focused on agriculture. Why? Because there's not going to be any war in the kingdom of heaven. Strike two for the tiny tots in the Holy Land today. Since they went back to the Holy Land, it's been nothing but war. Also here in Micah 4 and 3, this is the reverse of Joel, the 3rd chapter, which is what we're living in right now. The nations are actually beating their plowshares into swords. Everybody's militarizing. They're building up their militaries for the great war of Armageddon, World War III. So yes, this is in the kingdom of heaven. It says, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. This is upon the return of the actual family to the Holy Land and them being changed. The laws being written within their inward parts, like it talks about in Jeremiah. Verse 4, but they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts hath spoken it. Now, verse 5, check this out. And, you know, this is for people that are new, this will be far out for you. Check this out. Let's see if you can get it without me explaining it first. It says, for all people will walk everyone in the name of his God, lowercase g, a little hint for you. And we will walk in the name of the Lord, our God, forever and ever. I'll give you a second. What is that talking about? Well, in Revelation 5 and 10, let's go there really quick and then we'll come back here. And maybe it'll clear things up for you in this verse. All right, Revelation 5 and 9, let's start here, point is in 10. It says, and they sung a new song, saying, thou art worthy to take the book. All right, who was worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof? Yahweh Shai, who the word ignorantly calls Jesus. All right, he was the one that was that lamb without blemish. He came here and went his whole life as Yahweh Shai, void of sin, which is why he was able to overcome death. And we're going to highlight that later in the lesson as well. Okay. Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God. Yahweh Shai was our bridgeway back to the Father. Redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, because the nation of Israel, we were scattered amongst the nations, the diaspora. When you go to, let's go to John 7 and 35 really quick. Okay, and I'm going to read it to you in the GNT on the right here. It says, the Jewish, and I'm using air quotes because there's no such thing as Jewish. You're either a Jew or not, okay? You're not. No. Anyway, John 7 and 35. The Jewish leaders were puzzled by this statement. Where is he planning to go? They asked. Is he thinking of leaving the country, leaving the Commonwealth, the Holy Land, and going to the Jews in other lands? Maybe he will even teach the Greeks. So there's two words for Gentiles in the scriptures. Okay, that is used in two different ways. You got Gentiles in the sense of actual other nations, people outside of the covenant. And then you have Gentiles in the sense of Israelites that were scattered into other lands and took on the customs of the people of those lands. Primary example, look at you. You're here in America. You were raised up in the ways of the Americans. Or shall I say the Romans, because we're in the revived Roman Empire. You grew up, majority of us, practicing Halloween, which is Samhain, a satanic holiday. You grew up celebrating Christmas, all right, which is also a pagan holiday. Saturnalia has nothing to do with the birth of our Lord. The Lord was born around the Passover, right? That's in the springtime. He wasn't born in the dead of winter. That has nothing to do with our Lord. That's Saturnalia. Then you kept Easter. You put your Sunday's best on Sunday, which is supposed to be the Passover that you're celebrating, but you're celebrating Easter. What does that go back to? Ishtar, the fertility goddess. What does bunnies and eggs, painted eggs, have to do with the Lord? Nothing. What does that have to do with the saving of our people out of Egypt? Nothing. But it has to do with Ishtar. They would get eggs and coat them and paint them in blood. Sometimes in the blood of children that they sacrificed, and they would paint the eggs and pray to the fertility goddess so that they can multiply. These are all things that you took part in. It was dressed up in another way to you, but that's the root of all the so-called holidays that you celebrated here in Babylon. You grew up in the mind frame of a heathen, of a Gentile. And now that you're learning who you are, you're not celebrating holidays anymore. You're celebrating holy days. Now you're not. That's a lesson for another day. But you've become renewed in the mind. Okay. Now when we read the same verse, John 7:35 in the KJV, check it out. It says, "Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles?" The dispersed, the diaspora, that's what you'll find there when you go to it. The dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles. All right, just to prove to you that the word for dispersed there is the diaspora.
Strong's G1290. Diaspora. Diaspora.
It tells you right here. Let's highlight that. Of Israelites dispersed among foreign nations. Also, it says in the second definition, of the Christians scattered among the Gentiles, right? Now, a person will get simple and say, see, brother, it said Christians. They don't know what a Christian is. Israelites were first called Christians, all right? These scattered Israelites were first called Christians at Antioch, as the scriptures say. They were bloodline descendant Israelites in other lands who followed after the doctrine of Yahushua, who was, who people call the Christ. Again, whose real name is Yahushua. All right. He's the anointed one. He's our covering and our bridgeway back to the Father. Hone in on that. Now we're going to go back and finish Revelation 5 and 10. All right. Because we read in verse 9, and it says, "And hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation." So he was our bridgeway back to the Father after we were scattered, primarily during the Greek captivity, which is why the scriptures say neither Jew nor Greek. You can find the history of the Hellenization or the converting over to pagan customs of our family in the Apocrypha, right? The Greeks, came in and Hellenized many of our people. You have the Maccabean family who held fast to the customs during that time, which is why by the time Yahushua comes on the scene, you have the Levitical priesthood. They have so much pride about who they are and what they did. Okay? But you miss out on a lot of those nuances when you don't understand the full history of our people. All right? Which is a big part of why the Apocrypha was removed from the scriptures, why this devil removed it. But it's not hard to go find the Apocrypha or to look it up. Anyway, Revelation 5 and 10. "And has made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth." All right. Now we're going to go back to Micah, the 4th chapter. Check it out. It said we're going to be kings and priests, right? We're going to be administrators. A priest what does what? He administers the law. A king has dominion over people, lands, resources. He's a lord over people. He is looked to as a god on the lower level. The scriptures even tell you in Daniel 2 that the Lord setteth up kings and removeth them. The Lord's going to set up the last kings there's ever going to be in the kingdom of heaven. That's going to be the 144,000. Now we go back to Micah 4. So when we read verse 5 in Micah 4, it'll make sense to you now. All right. Micah 4 and 5. All right. It says, for all people will walk everyone in the name of his God, because the Lord is going to set particular men up over particular regions of the earth, particular lands and people. And they're going to be looked at as Yahweh, the same way we look at Yahweh Shai as our bridgeway back to the Father. So he's the lowercase g. All right. He's a God on a lower level to us. He's a power on a lower level to us than the Most High, of course. People are going to look at the elect men who are set up over them is their God. So it says, for all people will walk everyone in the name of his God. That's the other nations. And we, the Israelites, will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. We're going to have direct line to the Most High. The nations won't have that. All right, so now I want to talk about why the nation of Israel is even going to be equipped to rule on a level like this. And again, it goes back to the covenants that the Lord has with this family of people. All right, so let's go to Jeremiah 31 and 31. It says, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant. So this is what the new covenant consists of, for those who may be confused about that as well. That I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, all 12 tribes, right? Notice there's no other group of people included in this. Verse 32, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. So just to double down on he's dealing with the same people that he delivered out of Egypt. Which my covenant they break, because that first covenant no one was able to keep besides Yahweh Shai. Okay? Although I was an husband to them, saith the Lord. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel, same people. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law, the Lord's way, his standard, his righteousness, the commandments. I will put my law in their inward parts. This is that software update I was talking about. And write in their hearts, and the word for hearts there is going to be the word la'ab, meaning the mind, meaning our inner programming, our natural state of being. He's going to put or program his righteousness into us so that we cannot sin. And write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, other Israelites. We're not going to have to teach other Israelites when the new covenant takes place, because they're all going to have righteousness written within them. From a day that Israelite is born, they're not going to even be able to sin. So we're not going to have to teach other Israelites. But then you go back to Micah 4, like we mentioned, we're going to have to teach a group of people the Lord's ways. That's the other nations. Are you getting what's being said here? We're not going to have to teach other Israelites in the new covenant, in the kingdom of heaven, because they're going to have the laws written within them. But the other nations, like it talks about in Micah the 4th chapter in the kingdom of heaven, they're still going to need to be taught, because they're not going to have the laws written within their inward parts. And every man his brother saying, know the Lord. For they all shall know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, iniquity is sin upon sin, and I will remember their sin no more. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinance of the moon of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea, and the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart from me, saith the Lord, so the sun and the moon, those are ordinances that the Lord set up. He's saying, if they're able to cease from being, this will happen. then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. So as long as the sun and the moon are a thing, the nation of Israel is going to be a thing. And that relationship between the Lord and the nation of Israel is going to be a thing. I'm sure you all saw the sun this morning. All right, so now that we know that the law is going to be written within the inward parts of the nation of Israel, what also does that mean? If you're void of sin, you're also void of what? You're void of death. The only reason people die is because they sin. Let's go get what sin is really quick. All right, so we go to 1 John 3 and verse 4 there at the bottom. We're going to read this whole thing actually, because there's nuggets in there, but just for the train of thought to keep going. This is 1 John 3 and 4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. But the law is going to be written within our inward parts, right? For sin is the transgression of the law. Okay? Now, let's go to get Romans 6. What is the wages or the cost of committing sin? This is Romans 6 and 23. For the wages of sin is death. This is why people die, because they sin. But the gift of God is eternal through the life of Yahushua Mashiach our Lord. Now let's go back to 1 John 3. And let's read this whole thing from the top. It says, behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. We have that relationship, that covenant with him. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. We're not friends of the world, like it talks about in James. Verse 2, beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be, because there's nobody that has any resemblance to what we're going to be once we're changed on the earth. There's nobody that you can compare with the men of the Lord, what the nation of Israel is going to be, because they're not immortals. They don't have righteousness written within their inward parts. They don't have the judgments we have. They're not perfect. The nation of Israel is going to be made perfect upon the earth, and they're going to be an immortal family living upon the earth amongst the other nations who are just regular mortals. Verse 2, beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, Yahushua. When he appears, when he returns, we're going to be changed and made like unto him. We're going to be given a different body. Okay? We shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself, even as he is pure. So you're preparing yourself. You're marinating yourself for that change, which means you're offending the Lord less in your conduct. You're changing. You're becoming that new creature. You're being circumcised in the mind. You're taking heed unto the Lord's word. You're watching for prophecy. You're doing all these things. There's a conduct that comes along with the pathway that leads up to salvation. Someone that's going to receive salvation, they're cutting off the flesh. They're not perfect yet, but they're walking down that path to be changed, to be that first batch of Israelites that's going to be changed. So now it's a little bit clearer when you go to 1 Corinthians and it talks about this mortal shall put on immortality. You understand it now. All right, it's 1 Corinthians 15 and 51. It says, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. We're not all going to die. The scriptures even say there be some standing here that shall not taste of death. This last go around, there are going to be men who don't perish, that are just taken up into the chariot and changed. All right, they're going to be men who are made martyrs, okay, for the sake of Yahushua. But they're going to be raised from the dead and changed anyway. So really, for those who believe and walk the path, there is no losing for us. 1 Corinthians 15 and 51. Behold, I shew you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. The dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible, this flesh, this mortal body, for this corruptible must put on incorruption, an immortal body. And this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on the incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on the immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that death is swallowed up in victory. This is what salvation consists of. So again, like I said at the beginning of the clip, salvation consists of rulership and dominion, right? and immortality. These two things are going to elevate the earth in a whole new way. That righteous government is going to elevate the earth in a whole new way, as it says in Proverbs 29 and 2, I believe. When the righteous beareth rule, the people rejoice. So people are going to be rejoicing in the kingdom of heaven upon that righteous rulership being established by that immortal family. Okay? So there's salvation only pertains to the family of Israel. But in a sense, all the nations are going to benefit from that family ruling. You understand? So Abaratazah, I want to give all praises to the Most High. I hope that was edifying, Abaratazah, Lord willing. I want to give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Wakah HaKodash, double honors to the apostles, and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to all the brothers, and of course the few sisters who are pursuing this truth in sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your house. All right, Shalom.